how well are you dealing with or managing compliance requirements in light of new regulations and the ever evolving cyber threat landscape? In particular, we'll be looking at ISO 37301 compliance management system and the value that this can add to our compliance management activities within our various organizations. And welcome to all of you who have joined us, in this conversation. I know that you might be looking for this conversation and all that we have to unfold as it relates to compliance management activities within our organizations or businesses, regardless of our various jurisdictions. We have with us an industry expert in compliance and governance requirements, among many other credentials, who will be providing us with various insights into this subject of compliance management. We have the let me see, guys, forgive me for that. That's a technical glitch. Okay, great. Okay, so we have co-COO at Trexert, Hartmut Renz. Hartmut, welcome. Thanks for joining us in this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Great. And it's a pleasure having you. Taking that time to be with us today to provide your various industry insights into this subject matter. No doubt this is a passion of yours, something that you are passionate in terms of talking about, sharing the various insight that you would have gathered over the various, years of experience within the industry. So definitely, it's a pleasure having you. Now, interestingly, I just want to bring across the point that I recently had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was surprised. When he saw the event that we are actually having this conversation. Surprised based on the fact that there exists a well-defined, system or methodology for actually helping with properly structuring compliance management activities, regardless of the compliance requirements. So this is something that he was definitely looking forward to, based on the fact that there actually exists a system. So regardless of your compliance activities, there's actually a structure that can actually gauge and to guide this process. Now, in light of this, from your perspective, can you start by giving us, some insights into those trends that you possibly might have seen in the management system market as it relates to compliance management and its importance?
Sure, Jay, and good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, wherever you are and the audience. And thanks for having me, Richia. It's a pleasure to speak to you and with the audience to discuss management system approach, which we see in the market right now. And you have mentioned it. I'm a passionist, let's say it is, if it comes to compliance and compliance management systems, but not only compliance management systems, because I have learned that a management system in general is a very valuable instrument to manage risks. And that's a situation where we are all right now in a changing world, which means we need to focus on digital transformation, which means we have a changing environment if it comes to digitalization. And we have a lot of regulatory approaches, which means that we need to fulfill all the legal requirements of laws, rules, and regulations to keep our business, to keep our company safe. And that means we need an approach with an integrated management system approach, which means that we do not need to think in silos anymore when you think about a holistic approach if it comes to management systems and to manage our business and to manage our risks in the business and to develop and flourish with our business. So it means we need to focus on our risks. Of course, in a management system, it's a risk-based approach. And to be honest, although I am an educated lawyer, I'm not a friend of the regulatory approach, which we sometimes have in some companies if it comes to compliance management. I'm a friend of a process-driven approach because processes could be aligned much easier and more global compared to regulatory requirements, because regulatory requirements are local and the big upside of a management system approach, for example, according to ISO 37301 compliance management systems, is that you can use that approach globally, not only in a country or regionally, but indeed it's a global approach. And the most important topic I see right now is a topic if it comes to environmental, social, and governance topics, which is the ESG approach. So we talk about sustainability, and sustainability not only in terms of our environment, in terms of our nature, in terms of our resources, on our globe and in our globe. We talk also about sustainable and robust processes, which is, to my understanding, also part of sustainability, and of course, part of our governance approach if it comes to compliance management systems. And of course, let's say, ISO standard-based management system has also the upside that remote auditing and inspections, it's much easier because it is understood in the same way in each single location and each single country. And going back to the first statement I gave in terms of a transformation, a changing world, we are talking about AI at the moment, big data, data analytics. And this is also part of a compliance management system approach because we need to take care of that. It's the future, it's not the past. So we need to take care of this as well if it comes to the next step to, let's say, develop and enhance our personal management of our business and our risks in terms of compliance risks or in terms of other risks. And as already mentioned, based on an ISO standard, we are talking about global processes, global standards. So that means we have the chance to have a global harmonization if we use a global management system approach, for example, based on ISO standards. And it also means if we think in processes and in a process-driven world, regulatory changes would be handled much easier if we have a defined process landscape. And this process landscape enables us to have also our regulatory requirements in place in a regulatory inventory, which is then the basis for our processes. And we should, and this is development which I also see right now if it comes to our personal business, we should not only think about our own business or our own company, we should also think about supply chains and supply chain management, which based on the use of an ISO standard makes it much easier to take care of the supply chain risks if it comes to E, if it comes to S, if it comes to G. ESG is everywhere at the moment. And if it comes to supply chains, then you need to use ISO standards because you would not be able to manage all those different supply chain companies in a different way. So you need a holistic approach in your supply chain as well. And to switch the perspective right now, also, if it comes to a chain, we should also look forward to our distribution channels. So we need also a holistic approach with our distribution channels and our distribution companies as well. So this is a very complex world we're living in. So that means we need to also focus on resilience, which means robustness of processes, robustness of systems, robustness of our compliance approach, which is then also a great chance to use an ISO standard like 37301 or another one. For example, if we're talking about cybersecurity, you all know that. That's 27001 if it comes to information security. This is the basis to ensure that our business is robust enough, not only for today, also for the future. And if it comes to thinking about our process, thinking about our company, thinking about our business model, our customers, our processes, our clients, and our products, for example, then we also need to take care of continuous improvement on a day-to-day business. And this is also part of a compliance management system approach based, for example, on an ISO 37301. And my personal view, if it comes to, let's say, compliance and compliance management, we're talking about people. We are talking about human beings. We need to take care of conduct, which is, if you're talking about financial services industry, a huge topic at the moment if it comes to conduct risk management. So to take care of the behavior of your, let's say, staff, of your supply chain, of your distributors, of your customers. This is very, very, very important, and you could take care of this based on a compliance management system approach. And resilience means, of course, also operational resilience, and digitalization means take care of your systems, take care of your data, take care of the security of your data, which is an asset right now. It is definitely an asset. And looking into the future, if we're talking about assets, we need to take care about the development of digital assets as well, which means we're not talking about crypto assets in terms of Bitcoin or Ether or others. We should also take care of a digital assets approach in the future, which means blockchains and other IT solutions, let's say like this, IT solutions, quote unquote, if it comes to future, let's say, changes for our business model. So you see, a question for what is a compliance management and challenge to it? It's an easy question, to be honest, but not an easy answer.
Great, and I totally, I mean, agree with you in terms of all that you have actually mentioned, in terms of the outlook that exists on compliance, and it is something that is actually going in a positive direction in terms of the views and the perspective that existed as it relates to compliance. I mean, governance, the various systems that exist within the environment. I mean, based on the various regulatory requirements, then I strongly recognize that there are many companies, organizations are actually seeing the importance of actually getting all their systems, I mean, everything on board in line with meeting based on the sanctions, the penalties that exist. Then there seems to be some amount of seriousness as it relates to actually implementing, having these proper mechanisms. And when you talk about system, not looking at the actual software applications, but actually having that uh, methodological approach standard that has been tested and proven in this regard. Now, in light of all that I've actually said, one of the challenge that I do get in terms of feedback on this topic is the fact that while large entities are more likely to possibly see and understand the importance of compliance management and the various systems that need to be in place, what is the importance of compliance management system to our business or organization operating within today's environment where there are so many new regulations?
Hmm. It's a very good question, Richard, to be honest. And if it comes to the size of the company, you have mentioned it's easier for, let's say, bigger companies, bigger banks, bigger industrial companies to take care of compliance. To be honest, I would not agree to that, because each single company need to take care of its own laws, rules, and regulations. So adherence to laws, rules, and regulations is key, because you already mentioned findings, sanctions, fines, whatever. That means your business is on a day-to-day basis at risk, and you need to take care of that to reduce risks, to mitigate risk, and to, let's say, try to follow laws, rules, and regulations on a robust path, let's say it like this. And this means you should have a more pragmatic approach if it comes to following laws, rules, and regulations. And the easiest way is to have a, let's say, standardized approach based on global standards, like, for example, an ISO standard on compliance management or other management system standards issued by the ISO. So this is a very valuable instrument to avoid risks. And if it comes to risks, we need to speak about risk mitigation. And a compliance management system helps identifying and mitigating compliance risks very early and very easily, reducing the likelihood of non-compliance and the incidents based on non-compliance, which could harm the organization itself or its reputation or the financial stability of a company. So that means we need to have a robust approach if it comes to compliance and the compliance approach. So again, also, we need to have an enhanced operational resilience and an operational efficiency approach. Otherwise, there is no chance to keep pace and to have the same speed as our markets, our target markets, which are giving us the, let's say, order, what kind of speed do we need to survive with our business, to be successful with our business. And if it comes to resilience, of course, the main targets on that are efficiency gains, which means automation of compliance tasks could be done very easily if you have a holistic and, let's say, automated approach in a compliance management system. Or, for example, tracking and visibility, which means that a compliance management system provide a real-time tracking of compliance activities, or hopefully raising or, let's say, upcoming compliance risks as well. So, and if it comes to staff questions or the size of your staff or resources, a compliance management system based on an ISO standard is also enabling your company to optimize your resources, because if you have a risk-based approach, you can use your staff to mitigate risks and not to do day-to-day business tasks like ticking boxes or other things, which is, let's say, a very easy job, but might not reduce the risks or enables you to do more business or better business or more sustainable business. So it means also if you have a more holistic approach and more standardized approach, it's also a very personal view from my end as well. It's the employee well-being, because by reducing the manual burden of compliance tasks, a compliance management system implementation can also improve employee morale, as they can engage in more meaningful and less repetitive work and a more, let's say, purpose-driven work or a more risk mitigating work, which is then more, let's say, sustainable for your company and for the business of your company. And of course, a compliance management system could also adapt the evolving compliance requirements and business needs, which means enhancing the organization's resilience and preparedness for changing regulations or market dynamics, which are also key. And if it comes to situations like COVID-19 or other crises like wars or other topics, which are very, very bad, of course, but a compliance management system is also one of, let's say, several instruments and potential processes to be prepared for crises, because we think about crisis scenarios, because we think about what's coming up in the future, not only in terms of new regulations, also in terms of, let's say, challenges or risks or crises. And if it comes to decision making, if you have a, let's say, management system approach, this will improve your decision-making process as well, because we have a well-structured process. And this improves your decision-making in terms of faster, in terms of more reliable, in terms of the speed of the decision-making process and other topics. So the speed is also one of the, let's say, bridge functions, which brings me to the competitive advantage of a compliance management system. Compliance in, let's say, more general terms is mostly seen as a burden, as a kind of, let's say, formalized ticking the box approach. But if you think about a, let's say, more future-driven, more risk-based approach-driven compliance management system, this will also maintain compliance, which can expose a company to reputational risks. That means avoiding reputational risks, mitigate those risks, is key, because the reputational risk is a factor which your customers, your clients would have in mind if you want to do business with your company, with my company, with other companies. So we come back to, it's a question of trust. Who would you trust? The ones who are doing fails or are, let's say, scamming their customers? Definitely not. So it's a question of how trustful is your business. And if you have a robust management system, it will increase the trust. And the increased trust will then enable us to do more business, which needs it as a competitive advantage. So protecting stakeholder interests in terms of, let's say, the business stakeholders is also key to have this kind of approach if it comes to compliance management systems. And of course, robust systems enables us to prevent financial losses in terms of failings of processes, in terms of fines, in terms of legal fees, in terms of sanctions or other topics. Criminal, I don't want to mention it, but it's part of avoiding strategy for the compliance management system approach. And of course, remediation costs. If we talk about, for example, the financial services industry where I'm from, your regulator has a lot of instruments to, let's say, burden you if it comes to, let's say, findings from the external auditors. And this will cost a lot of effort, not only personal effort, also costs in terms of money to mitigate those topics and to address these compliance issues as well in your company. And if you want to expand your business globally, which means that you would do your business not only in your city or in your country or on your continent, that means you need to have robust processes in place because it's too cost intensive if you have different processes for the same thing in different countries. It would double or triple costs, which doesn't make sense. So if it comes to compliance management system and a more overall compliance management system approach, there is a need for having robust systems and processes in place. So if it comes to efficient auditing and reporting, also a compliance management approach enables this approach to be efficient in reporting in terms of business topics, in terms of compliance topics, in terms of legal topics or other topics. And last but not least, and this is I don't want to say it's one of my hobbies, but in terms of what really drives a compliance management system is to promote a positive compliance culture, which means we're talking about the right mindset, we're talking about the right training, the right education, the right awareness to or for compliance-driven risks. And the open communication in terms of escalating or let's say speaking about issues, key topics, which are, let's say, challenging our processes is key. And of course, the accountability and the recognition, as well as, again, the continuous improvement if it comes to our compliance management system. I know, a very quick question, a long answer, sorry for that, but it's too important to, let's say, skip one of the potential responses I had in mind.
Sure. I totally agree with all that you've actually said. I mean, putting myself in the shoes of the board itself, then these are very important points that I would be looking for in terms of actually making that investment and actually to undertake having this in place, bearing in mind that the trade-off, the benefits to be gained from actually having this system in place is far more beneficial to the organization from all the various points that you have actually mentioned. So these are definitely critical points for, I mean, management, all the various, I mean, powers that be that exist in an organization should be thinking about, at least for anything that they're undertaking, look at the trade-off, the benefits to the organization in keeping them in alignment with meeting their various business objectives. Now, in light of this, based on all that you have just said, I mean, yeah, actually, people are actually asking the question of what are we talking about in terms of, I mean, ISO 37001. What is this all about? I mean, so can you provide us with an overview in terms of what ISO 37301 is and its significance in the realm of compliance management? I mean, you have mentioned some of those, but just to reinforce
Yeah,
this.
of course. What are we talking about? We're talking about a standard, which is an ISO standard, and ISO standards, at least as far as I am aware of, are issued, I think, by now 25,000. So ISO 37301 is only one of them, which means is one of the robust, at least from my perspective, robust approaches to be compliant. And it's a internationally recognized standard, which also means that it is, let's say, accepted almost globally, which is good. And it provides organizations with a structured framework if it comes to guidelines for developing, implementing, maintaining, and continually improving their compliance program. So it's a question of robustness. And this, let's say, well-structured compliance management system, ISO standard, is a structured framework which offers a well-organized framework for compliance management. And because risk and how to manage risks is also a key part of each management system approach, risk-based approach is one of the key elements a compliance management system would have in your company, in each company. And of course, this is one of the basis elements of each ISO standard as well. And so for the ISO standard for compliance management, ISO 37301, of course, as well. And as we are talking about ISO standards are, let's say, built up in a similar way, which means if we have more than only one management standard or management system standard in place or want to have in place for a company, it's very easy to integrate them because they are fitting to each other. They use the same language, they use the same style, they use the same approach, they use the same, let's say, chapters in their description of the management standard. So it's very easy to combine, for example, the ISO 37301 with the already mentioned 2701 if it comes to IT security, information security. Or as we spoke about ESG topics, we could also include 40,001, which means we're talking about environmental management, which is then part of fulfilling the requirements for the E, environmental, in the ESG approach. Or, for example, ISO 9001, very well known if it comes to quality management. This is all an integrated approach, which is easy to handle if you have understood and implement one single management system standard in your company. And then you could add other topics in a very easy way. And then you could continue to improve your approach. You could continue to improve your management approach if it comes to your own organization. They are global applicable, of course, because they are global standards based on the ISO organization. And the risk mitigation and the stakeholder confidence is also very key to have it in place, because without trust, without confidence, it would not work. And if it comes to documentation reporting, it's definitely easier if you have a standard in place which enables you to document and to report in a very easy and efficient way to all your stakeholders, to, for example, the management boards, to your external regulators, to external bodies like government bodies or others. Yeah? Legal and regulatory adherence is also one of the aspects which a ISO standard like 37301 enables you as a company to follow laws, rules, and regulations in a very easy way, because the systems, the management systems, are comparable. And so there is no need to double your work, which is then one of the key elements. It's cost saving. Of course, it's cost saving because you need to only take care of a process once and not twice or three times or more. Yeah, which then leads again to the question in terms of your supply chain and the supply chain management, to make this supply chain efficient and effective. And to be very honest, you can't manage different companies on a different approach, based on a different approach. So that means you need to have a standardized approach, which then comes to an ISO standard. And an ISO standard, if it comes to compliance, which is then rolled out on your supply chain, enables you to manage compliance risks, not only for your company, also for the whole supply chain you use, which is then easy for you to take care of your risks.
Okay, great. Thanks for, explaining, sharing that with us. Know that we have that clear understanding of ISO 27301, at least, a brief understanding. And you mentioned something earlier before, talking about risk management. And every organization has various, types of risks to deal with within our organization, not to mention various cybersecurity, information security risks. Are there specific cyber related risks that ISO 37301 helps organizations identify and manage more effectively?
Mhm. Now, I personally see the ISO 37301 compliance management system as a kind of basis if it comes to compliance topics. So if we talk about cyber risks, IT security, information security, this is part of a compliance, of an overall compliance risk management approach. Data protection is also part of it. Anti-fraud or anti-financial crime, anti-money laundering, other topics are also part of an ISO world of 37301 compliance management. And this program enables you to have other, let's say, specific ISO standard management systems to to be implemented very easy. For example, a cyber-related risk ISO standard like the 27001 for information security. And certainly ISO 37301 helps organizations to identify and manage specific cyber risks in a very effective manner. For example, it strengthens the data protection to mitigate data breaches, which is key because we all have data. We are paying with our data. We're using data. So big data analysis is a key element of your business, not only now, also for the future. And strengthening data protection keeps your business safe and secure. And identifying and addressing vulnerabilities in information systems is also part of this cyber-related risk. Ensuring compliance with data privacy regulations, which is a typical, I don't want to say typical German approach, but the German Data Protection Act was one of the basis elements of the GDPR in Europe. And I now see also other countries following an approach like, for example, California in the US and other countries that they want to have data privacy regulations in place to keep data, private data, protected. Yeah. Developing incident response plans for cybersecurity breaches as well, also part of a cyber-related risk approach of a overall compliance management system. And if we're talking about assessing and managing third-party cybersecurity risks, we also had in mind and have in mind the argument which we have used for the supply chain management. So assessing and management third-party risks, if it's cyber risk or compliance or fraud or anti-money laundering or others, is key. And therefore, you need a standardized approach based on an ISO standard, based on a compliance management system approach. Raising employee awareness, which means training, education on a permanent basis, enables you to continuously improve your processes. And ensuring consistent adherence to cybersecurity policies is also a linkage to the overall compliance management system approach. And last but not least, integrating cybersecurity into an overall compliance efforts to reduce regulatory non-compliance risk is key because it's cost efficient. If you can avoid cybersecurity risk, you also can avoid compliance risk. And this is a very common saying when we talk about compliance risk. If you think compliance is expensive, try to be non-compliant. And then we're talking about costs. So it's not a burden. It's the basis to save money. It's the basis to do your business in a more robust way.
Sure. So one of the challenge feedback that I get as it relates to systems, frameworks, standards, various regulations. If an organization is thinking about actually incorporating the ISO 37301 to help with their, cyber secure, their compliance management efforts, how does the ISO 37301 differs from other compliance management, maybe say frameworks or standards? And what are those key principles as it relates to adapting this, methodology or standard within your organization?
Yeah, let's start with some examples, and let's first crunch some numbers. Let's say, get this. If we speak about numbers on cyber threats, we have, for example, in 2022, the global average of data breach costs were 4.5 million US dollar, which is huge. In 1 year, the average cost of breaches resulting from stolen or compromised credentials amounts to also 4.5 million US dollar. And if it comes to a specific industrial sector, I'm talking right now about the healthcare sector, this industry has been the costliest for breaches of 12 consecutive years, with an average data breach cost reaching 10.2 million US dollars in the last year, for example, 2022. Phishing is also a, let's say, huge threat of our, let's say, systems and our personal data. And phishing remains the most common cyber attack, with approximately 3.4 billion daily spam emails. 3.4 billion daily, which is huge. And during last year, nearly 500 million ransomware attacks were detected by organizations worldwide. So that means if we're talking about the ISO 37301 compliance management, which is the basis for our robustness of your compliance culture and the compliance approach, then we can speak about further topics we need to be in our mind if we talk about the ISO 37301, which means it's a structured framework, which is easy to handle. The risk-based approach, which we also have mentioned. The integration or the possibility of integration with cybersecurity, because both standards, 27001 information security as well as 37301 are made on the same basis, which means they are very easy to be integrated. And the cultural emphasis, a 37301 ISO standard on compliance management, enables us also to use the same cultural approach to avoid IT security and information security risks, because 27001 information security, the ISO standard on that, has the same approach. And it enables us, again, to continuously improve our processes to avoid cyber risks if it comes to our compliance management approach. So it fosters a culture of compliance and continuous improvement and helping organizations better defend against cyber threats while ensuring overall compliance with regulations. And ISO 27001 is only one of the rules that which needs to be in all of our minds and to be followed to avoid risks.
Sure, definitely. I mean, very critical points as it relates to um, the overall. I mean, dealing with compliance management, and just to add to the insights that you have actually started out with initially, can you provide us, I mean, with further insights, I mean, into the future of compliance management in terms of where do you see this going? I mean, with systems like ISO 37301, and I mean, the evolving relationships with cybersecurity and GRC, I mean, in a rapidly changing business landscape.
Mhm. I do think the evolving business landscape will follow not only the laws, rules, and regulations, it would also follow what kind of challenges do we see for our business models. So we need to speak about increased cyber focus because compliance systems will prioritize cybersecurity, ensuring a proactive approach to cyber threats, which means proactive is preventative. So that means you could prevent the risks if you are proactive. If you're reactive, it's not possible. Then you could also see, something has happened, what should I do next? Yeah, which is not the right approach to reduce or mitigate risks. And if we speak about real-time automation, compliance systems will automate real-time monitoring for quicker issue detection and resolution. That means that the faster you see risks, the easier to avoid those risks, the easier to mitigate them, and the faster to mitigate them, so that we would reduce regulatory fines or criminal sanctions or other topics. Yeah? AI, artificial intelligence, and analytics will also assist in identifying compliance gaps and cyber threats. And of course, tech integration means we are talking about the year 2023. We're not using papers anymore. So we're talking about, let's say, iPads, iPhones, laptops, or other topics where we have, or for example, blockchain or cloud computing, where we need to have compliance systems with integrative and emerging technologies like blockchain and Internet of Things, for example. Yeah. So this is also part of our, let's say, risk-based approach to avoid risks in the future for our current business model and hopefully for our future business model. And the adaptation, the dynamic adaptation is also very key because systems will rapidly adapt to changes in regulations, especially in data privacy or other topics. We have, for example, in the European Union, currently issued a regulation which is taking care of crypto assets. This is called MiCA, for example, markets in crypto assets. And it's one of the first rule sets, which is a kind of blueprint for other countries or for other, let's say, continents to follow. Not our approach in the EU, but in terms of taking care of upcoming and future topics which need to be let's say, regulated in the right way to enable business on one side and reducing risks on the other side. So if it then comes to collaboration, compliance, cybersecurity, and GRC teams, which means governance, risk, and compliance teams, will work more closely together because they are focusing on the same basis. It's a management system approach, and the management system has several parts of several risks which need to be mitigated. And the transparency of enhanced reporting will also demonstrate commitment to stakeholders. You say, and you will take care of standardized approach, risk-based approach to enable your business on a sustainable basis and to reduce risks. And this needs to be made transparent to all the stakeholders. To all the stakeholders, they need to take care of your business. And we have mentioned it several times, the ESG approach, sustainability, in which compliance will extend to cover sustainability and ESG concerns and to mitigate risk or to enable your business based on an ESG approach. Both ways. So that means you can use regulatory requirements like ESG as a part of your future business, first, and second, to avoid risks for your business in the future. Both ways are possible. And resilience, also already mentioned, that systems will address broader business continuity challenges for enhanced resilience is also part of this ISO standard approach, which we need to think about in terms of the rapidly changing business landscape in which we are all in.
There seems to be so many moving parts, so many
Yeah.
systems, so many requirements. I mean, and that's one of the challenges that many, I mean, security professional, I mean, organizations, businesses have to deal with as it relates to. There are so many things that are happening. Not to mention what is taking place with AI moving into the future, the complexities that exist for businesses, which now increases the risk and threat landscape for organizations. So, I mean, staying up to date and compliant with the ever evolving threats and regulations can be quite challenging for, I mean, these security or various individuals in these organizations. How can organizations stay updated and compliant with all that is happening? I mean, while using the ISO 37301 as a foundation for their compliance, I mean, management.
Very good question, Richard, to be honest. And we can speak about that the whole day, I would say. So
Exactly.
let's start with let's say phrases or words or descriptions. What we need to take care of. Continuous improvement, I've already mentioned, and risk-based approach and risk management, of course, as well. But training and awareness, taking care of the mindset of your staff, of your let's say, colleagues is very key, because the better they are trained and educated, the better you could mitigate risks for the future. Information sharing in terms of joint industry networks for threat intelligence is also very key. Of course, we could all believe ChatGPT and other tools, but for me, personal exchange, like what we do right now, of course, virtually, but in terms of sharing information, is so valuable, because I made my experience, you made your experience, the audience has its experience on specific topics. So sharing information is key to learn and to develop and flourish in terms of new businesses. Policy updates is tick the box. Yes, you need to update your policies based on new laws, rules, and regulations and upcoming risks. Incident responses means to maintain updated cyber incident response plans. And pen tests, which means penetration tests, is also a very important and valuable instrument to conduct regular penetration tests to identify vulnerabilities and assess security measures in terms of your systems, in terms of the cloud computing, in terms of your blockchain. No matter what we're talking about, pen test permanently continuous improvement is key. And for that, you need cybersecurity experts like you, for example, Lucia. That means well known, well educated, well trained persons with a lot of experience to employ these specialists in cybersecurity for your own company, which is, to be very honest, a challenge in the market because there are not so much experts there compared to the needs all the companies have, not only in terms of cybersecurity or compliance, also in terms of ESG, also in terms of other specific topics. So to let's say evaluate the needs of these persons to get them on a higher level of their personal career path is key, definitely key. Vendor risk management, third parties, yeah, or other audits from external or internal stakeholders are key to make your management system approach more robust. And of course, collaboration and incident reporting is also key because you need to take care of all the potential challenges for your processes and the incidents you already have in terms of lessons learned and what needs to be in place in the future to avoid those risks, to avoid those issues, and to avoid those incidents. So I do think that definitely not the full list, yeah, but a list of some of the examples I would see in the market in terms of threat and ISO 37301 linkage to avoid those risks in the near future.
Sure, and as you have rightly said, I mean, this is a particular topic in of itself that we could actually go into. I mean, this is one of the greatest challenge for many organizations in terms of actually dealing with all of these various, I mean, moving parts, integration, um, creating that alignment with meeting business objectives, ensuring that there is actually a return on investment. I mean, from a governance perspective, that's one of the main focus, ensuring that organizations, regardless of their processes, their technologies, they're actually meeting the overall business or organizational objectives. And in line with that, I mean, how does the ISO 37301, I mean, guide organizations in aligning their compliance management efforts with their overall business strategy and, I mean, including cyber risk management?
ISO 37301 helps organizations align compliance and cyber risk management because they are based on the same, let's say, standard approach based on ISO standards. And with those alignment efforts, we are talking about, of course, the risk-based approach and the strategy of your risk management, the integration of other ISO standards, which then means you're not only focused on one single silo, and then to avoid the risk in that silo, you can also avoid risks in your whole business environment and globally. And now we're coming to be very honest, to a very key topic, which means we definitely need leadership commitment. We need the right tone at the top, the right tone from the top, the right role models in place in your company where we could follow because they behave in the right way. And the leadership and its commitment is key to ensure the top management drives compliance in line with strategic objective. The companies I have met in my personal career path, um, you could evaluate them based on their leadership behavior because the better management, top management leaderships, each single leader behaves according to a standard or according to laws, rules, and regulation, the more robust, the more sustainable the business model is. Because less fines, less findings, less sanctions enables the company to let the revenues inside the company and don't spend it for fines or for sanctions or other topics, which is then a more robust business model, which we're talking about right now. And the awareness in terms of the context means that considering the organization's unique context, obligations, and goals are also key. And of course, the documentation and communication, if it comes to a support approach for the compliance management system, is also a very valuable instrument to be used.
Yes, exactly. So now that we have the understanding, we know what actually lies in terms of the outlook on compliance management system, the benefits to organization. I mean, are there certain key steps that organizations can actually look into in terms of actually adapting? Because that is one of the things. I mean, we are seeing this, businesses are actually seeing this, they are becoming aware. For those who are not aware and might be saying, how can I adapt this in my organization? Are there certain steps, I mean, that they can actually take to initiate this process in terms of in their compliance management practices, especially those with complex cyber and GRC requirements?
Hmm. Absolutely. I don't want to call it back to square one, but if it comes to, let's say, the robustness of business, we're talking about a commitment from leadership, which then means if the commitment is there, this helps the organizations in terms of getting better compliance management practices in place. Understanding the context, what's the laws, rules, and regulations, what's the, let's say, approach of our peer groups, what's the approach of regulators, what's the approach of, let's say, governing bodies, and so on and so forth. And you need to have a gap analysis in place to be conducted, a thorough gap analysis to identify areas where your compliance management system, which means the ISO 37301 principles, can be integrated and enhanced. And it does not mean that at first steps you need to implement the full management system approach based on the ISO 37301. It might also be very helpful to do that step by step and to do small steps and implement step by step each single part of an ISO standard or of a compliance management system approach. And then after only a few days, a few weeks, a few months, it depends on how big your company is, you will have a very robust compliance management approach. And to that, you can integrate and add other management system approaches as well, because they're all based on ISO standard. And it means you can customize either 37301 to align with your organization's specific needs. Where's the highest risk? For that, I need to implement first the topics which enables me as a company to avoid those risks or to mitigate those risks. And of course, the documentation means that the development and the documentation of compliance policies, procedures, and controls will ensure that the reflection of the ISO standard 37301 in my company is in place. So all in all, training and awareness is also very key, because we need to have people, staff in place which know what to do, which are educated on that, which have a feeling of compliance management and to avoid risks, to mitigate risks. This is very, very key. And integration with cybersecurity is very easy, because both are based on ISO standards. And regular audits need to be conducted on a regular basis to assess compliance with ISO 37301. And this could be done internally by, for example, your own internal audit function, or externally by auditors, or externally by accredited certification bodies who could certify your company as well. No matter what way you choose, what needs to be in place is a control of the effectiveness of your compliance management program, which means your compliance management system approach. So the tone at the top and the leaders are key to ensure that this will be taken very seriously, because there's also a saying, we have a zero tolerance in place. We all know zero tolerance is not the truth, because if we're doing business, mistakes will be made. Of course, we are all human beings, but the risks of failures and the risks of struggling with our processes, this needs to be mitigated. And then we have the right tone at the top in place, and the right framework for having the right management system approach in our company, and, for example, in our whole group, if we're talking about a group of companies.
I mean, guys, there is so much to discuss, so much to talk about as it relates to compliance management, as it relates to the standard in of itself. I mean, what can it do for your organization? So this is definitely a A standard, a topic that I strongly recommend that you take that time to look at the documentation, to look at the benefits that this can actually add to your organization. And we are not saying that you need to go out and to complicate your business, complicate the operations, but actually to look at the benefits that can be derived, to analyze, to assess what actually works, and then take small steps and to possibly, as you have rightly mentioned, to scope whatever it is that you're doing, start in small stages. Now, as I'd mentioned at the start of this, then I alluded to the fact that Hartmut is the co-CEO at Trexert. Can you tell us more about Trexert and its ability to help businesses or organizations develop their compliance, systems as part of their GRC program in relation to the ISO 37301?
Sure. Trexit is a German company based in Hanover, and Trexit as a company is ANSI ANAP accredited as a certification body for individuals issuing certificate test the expertise of professionals. That means the better you are trained, the better you are enabled to follow the logic of an ISO standard or your management programs. That means at Trexit, we offer a range of, if we focus on ISO 37301, certifications and high quality training programs to help professionals and to support them to develop their skills and, of course, their knowledge in compliance management. That means our certifications are designed to support the needs of professionals at various levels of expertise, from those who are new to the field of compliance, for example, or of management system approaches, and those who have extensive experience, which means that each certification at Trexit and the programs have its own prerequisites, domains covered in the exams, certification materials, and exam details. And if you're talking about the ISO standard 37301, we have different levels depending on your expertise and on your experience and skill set you could use as a part of your own personal education career path. We're starting with a foundation program, which is then the basis to be at the next step a professional, which is the second step. And the next step would then be either a lead implementer or a lead auditor, which need to be then certified also, and not only on the skill set, and also on the experience a person has made in the past. Because of course you can have the right knowledge, but experience is key. So if you are experienced enough to follow a compliance management system as a lead implementer or lead auditor, that would be of highest value for your company and for your own personal career path, to be honest. So Trexit plays a pivotal role in assisting businesses and organizations in the development of their compliance systems as an integral part of their governance, risk, and compliance programs, the GRC programs, through a portfolio of specialized training courses. And our trainings also include not only ISO 37301, but also, for example, ISO 27001, which is the program on which we are I would call it unique animal in the world, because we are the only one by now who are accredited by ANSI ANAP for ISO 27001 for personal certification for lead implementer and lead auditor. So this is the highest quality we could deliver based on ANSI ANAP accreditation. And by enrolling in Trexit ISO 37301 and, for example, the ISO 27001 training programs, individuals can gain the expertise needed to ensure compliance with regulatory requirements, manage risks, and establish a culture of compliance and data security. And last but not least, and Richard, you know me, I'm conscious of time, so we have only 1 more minute, I do think. Trexit can only provide customized training solutions. That means Trexit can tailor its training programs to specific companies or to the specific needs of the business of specific companies and organizations. And Trexit has a proven track record in providing such tailor-made trainings and certifications. And we already provide such services to major clients around the world if it comes to tailor-made programs. So this is also a part companies could use to, let's say, enable them to have a tailor-made program and certification in place to be on a more robust level for doing business and mitigate risks. We still have a minute, Richie.
Okay, thanks for, sharing all of that info, sharing all of that insights about, compliance management, tricks offerings. And this is not so much, guys, about, talking about certifications per se, but it's actually gaining the right skill set, gaining the right training that you can actually go into an organization with a professional skill set to actually help organizations to operate more efficiently, regardless of what it is that they are doing. Let me quickly look if there are any questions inside here on these platforms. Okay, great. Not seeing any additional questions. So, guys, that's it from us. Hope you will gain some valuable insights from this conversation that you can actually take back to help your organizations to become more resilient in their overall operations. So that's it from us. Until then, have a great, rest of the day, guys, as I look forward to having these future conversations. Bye.
Thank you all, and thanks for having me. Take care.
Okay. Awesome. Great. Thanks.